welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, alias Flexdan, and of course we are here for a very, very memorable program today. A very memorable program. Why? Because we have so much jam-packed. Welcome to another edutaining Straight Talk show where we hit the nail on the head about important issues facing the country. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, alias Flexdan. You are tuned into West Coast Radio 95.3 FM and also streaming live on Gainako Newspaper YouTube page. Yes, we do have so much tuned for you guys today. Definitely that we need to talk about. We're going to start with a Pan-African flavor to today's program, and we're going to definitely have to give you guys a Pan-African flavor of program today, because we got some human rights advocates who came from Sudan, who we managed to speak to, and they are also on the card. So the Pan-African flavor, it starts with this. Let's see if I can get this to play for our listeners.
And I was excited to write about. Thank you very much. My name is Modulamin Sow. I am a creative writer, and I adopted the pen name Modulamin H. Almusaf Sow. And I was excited to write about a poetry collection which I titled Africa, Not Africa. Because in a world where African voices are often silenced or perhaps misrepresented, I needed to give a shining example of the power of poetry, especially indigenous storytelling, in order to fearlessly confront the complexities of identity, history, and culture in a way that is both insightful and resourceful. So my ability to capture the essence of Africa and its diaspora with such clarity and depth is a testament to my talent as a thinker and as a creative writer. So my words have to breathe life into the struggles, the joys, the triumphs, and of course the sorrows of the African experience. I am inviting my readers to see the continent in a new light. My work is not only a celebration of our shared value, can I say cultural heritage, but also a call to action for a more inclusive and equitable future. Through my poetry, I challenge everyone, all of us, to re-examine our perceptions of Africa and to embrace the complexities of our history with open heads and minds. So therefore, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Africa.
Not Africa. There we go. That was the voice of Modulamin H. Almusaf, alias Almusaf. Definitely a scholar, a writer, an author who has just launched a book, as I said, titled Africa with a K-A, Not Africa. And the book has, the launch actually managed to really get the interest of a number of students, which I found very, very important and interesting, because in a world where now we are very interested about how are we making sure children read. Less and less children will read. So this is one of the reasons why I felt it was very important to highlight this book, which at the launch you had a number of children who answered questions. There was a competition, and the children who answered questions, they were receiving copies of the book about African identity, as you said, changing the mindset. In that trend, you can get that book actually at Timbuktu if you want a copy, and I think you should definitely rush down there and take a look and see this book. Well, what next? Of course, said we have a very, very interesting program. But first, the breaking news. Breaking news. Ousman Sonko, the former interior minister under Jammeh, has been sentenced to 20 years by a Swiss court just today. Breaking news happened today. In total, at least 3 perpetrators identified by the TRRC have now faced justice convictions. So we will go into that into more detail. We have an exclusive interview which will come. One of the claimants of that case, the Ousman Sonko case, will be talking to us. We are going to call them soon enough when we get further into the program. Back again to our Pan-African perspective. A group of youth human rights advocates from Sudan have visited the country to attend to an African Human Rights Forum organized by the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies. I spent some time with them and visited the Memory House in Kanifing Estate yesterday, where they met Gambian civil society advocates. Now, here is the voice of Fauzia from Sudan. We managed to have a catch-up with Fauzia, and we're gonna give you the interview that we had with her. Here is the voice of Fauzia.
I'm Fauzia, I'm from Sudan. My organization is African Organization for Rights and Development. Our office is basically in Kampala. After they looted our office from Khartoum, we relocated in Kampala right now. Yes, we came here at the coalition with my colleagues, and then we find here a memory house, and I'm really glad that to meet our sisters here and tell us about what they have done for the Gambian peoples and the atrocities happened to them. And for me, that is like to share our experience and stories what happening in the Sudan. It is the same, not very different. So Sudanese peoples right now, they are facing many problems. They are staying in neighbor countries as a refugee. They living in the camps. They doesn't have a decent life like many African peoples who face war in other countries. And from these meetings, like we want to let every African countries to know what's happened in Sudan right now, and we need to get solidarity around us to make to stop war in Sudan.
That was the voice of Fauzia. Fauzia is from Sudan. She was in the country. They've left now. They've seen civil society advocates. That was after a meeting with the former TRRC Vice President Adelaide Ceesay, as well as Madam Sira Ndau, who is the coordinator for ANECED. She is also the chairperson for the Alliance for Victim-Led Organizations. They run Memory House, ANECED. So we also had the voice, a veteran voice speak, Madam Adelaide Ceesay. So we will hear this solidarity.
It was a very interactive meeting, and we appreciate them coming to meet with us, to share their problems with us, and to learn from us. So it was a very interactive session. But one thing that came out was that we stand in solidarity and support with them, and we'll do whatever we can to give them the required help and support that they need to amplify their voices, to get the message across, and to bring sustainable change and development in their beloved country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope that the theme and the hard work you've worked on, Never Again, will follow all the way through.
It will, God willing. It will. Thank you.
So that was the voice of Madam Adelaide Ceesay, the former vice chairperson for the TRRC. We also managed to talk to Sira Ndau of the ANECED, and also the chairperson for the AVLO, who is also a very important civil society advocate. They met the Sudanese contingent when they came, and they had some good conversations with them. So we are going to shift gears. We are going to move. Today we have so much to cover, From one breaking news, we're gonna try to give you another breaking news, which obviously I think a lot of people are very interested in. Just yesterday, the ferry services, they had a stuttered start. If you all remember, the Gambia has been suffering with ferry service incident which happened with the ferries. However, just yesterday, Ferry Services on their social media page published this public notice. The management of Gambia Ferry Services wishes to inform its customers and the general public that the ferry closed today at 6 p.m. due to routine maintenance works on the new engines. All customers are assured that operation shall resume tomorrow at 6 a.m. Tomorrow being today. This was written yesterday for the first ferry from Banjul. So what we want, if you are a caller, you also make a caller. That ferry bi danko munona use tay. Da use nga ferry bi tay 6 a.m. Bo fa deme naka ferry services dina ba pour ñu xam ndax tay am nga chance pour use ferry services. That's the latest. Because of Gambia, I'm an issue with the ferry. Protest because of the ferry. And then we've seen what has happened with those guys. How far are we going with regards to the ferry services? Another very important news, which we should have broken here some weeks back, but it's a very, very important news. It's about the Gambia's Press Freedom Index, which is declining. As journalists, as media personnel, we are obviously very interested in the Gambia's press freedom positioning in Africa, within the rest of the world. And these are the statistics. The Gambia's press freedom ranking has dropped 12 places from 46th out of 180 in 2023, last year, to 58 out of 180 in 2020. This is according to the annual Reporters Without Borders publication on World Press Freedom Day. They always publish this article every year, or their study ranking all the countries. So, what is important? In reaction to this, the new Minister of Information, Honorable Ousman Ceesay, said this: his ministry will do everything to work with the Gambia Press Union and all stakeholders to ensure that at least Gambia is ranked either first, second, or third, that is in brackets in terms of the ranking, in Africa, and nothing above 25th in the world next year. So that's the target that the Minister of Information has set out, and he has pledged to work with the Gambia Press Union to make sure that that happens. We will be watching to see call coming in. I don't know if you're calling for the ferry service to tell us whether you have used it or not. We really would like to know. We're going to open up the lines to dial. We're going to open it up very soon. But before that, we have an exclusive interview, and we have a few more very important national issues to discuss. Not the least is last week, State House issued a press release last week announcing that President Adama Barrow will tour industrial areas and inaugurate rural health centers. However, the same press release adds that Fatou Barrow Foundation, FAB, and the NPP Regional Bureau will be inaugurated during the presidential tour, which started last week. This raises questions about President Adama Barrow's mixture of partisan and personal activities during his presidential tour. Should the inauguration of the Fatou Barrow Foundation be a presidential activity? This is the question that I leave with our listeners. This is the question that I leave with our National Assembly members. And the NPP Regional Bureau, which will be inaugurated during this so-called presidential tour. Is it okay now for the president to spend taxpayers' money or to include such activities in his presidential tour? I think this raises serious question. A mature country, fully functional, they would have tested this. They would have tested the courts. The civil society advocates would have tested the courts to see if this is something that it goes in accordance with the Gambian constitution. However, one expense that we don't consider is the time lost by government officials failing to attend to their daily functions only to attend to presidential tours, sending off and receiving the president from his travels. Now, is this the Gambia that we want? Meanwhile, just next door, the Gambia continues to waste state resources, well, yes, as we just said, but Senegal's newly elected President Jammeh has decided to do away with the practice where officials send off and welcome the president from his travels. That's a lesson there for the Gambia to learn from. We've got more important news. We will be questioning, asking serious questions that need serious answers, such as this other question which we have. Should Parliament interrogate government's ATI recommended commissioners? Should the National Assembly interrogate government's ATI recommended commissioners? Why do I ask this question? Nene McDowell, allegedly gay, has been recommended to what? To lead the ATI, Access to Information Commission, and included a number of others in the list. However, most of those in the list really, you could say they've been, they probably fit the criteria to be very fair to the government selection. Some of these people definitely, have been independent. They have been recognized human rights advocates. This is what is required in the ATI Act, Section 34 of the Access to Information Act. And it is based on these reasons that we believe, myself and some of my colleagues too, believe that Nene McDowell Gay, who was a former Minister for Information under former President Yahya Jammeh, pandered to the whims and caprices of the former dictatorship. We feel that this will be a disaster. Why? She was never a recognized human rights defender, amongst a number of other subclauses which require independent persons to occupy such a key role. This is not just a commissioner. This is going to be apparently the recommended chair for the commission. So should Parliament scrutinize this list to make sure all of them comply with Section 34 of the Access to Information Commission? We will be watching the National Assembly, and in fact, we have a National Assembly member who we will be calling. But before we do call our National Assembly member, we will introduce the very important topic, which is going to be the main topic for today. And the breaking news: Ousman Sonko sentenced to 20 years by Swiss courts. 20 years by Swiss courts. 3 perpetrators have been sentenced for Jammeh-era crimes so far. That is since at least 3, because the NIA are there, the NIA group, the NIA bunch, NIA 9 or NIA 8 as they call them, they are there. So we will do some more to see if it's more than 3. But at least 3. So since 2021, 3 perpetrators at least have been identified by the Truth, Reconciliation, Reparations Commission, and they have been convicted by a Gambian court, a German court, and a Swiss court. Now, we will start from the first one. The first conviction for a Jammeh-era crime, when we say Jammeh-era crime, TRRC, 1994 to 2017, was back on 14th July 2021. That is after former AFPRC junta leader Yankuba Toure refused to sentence to death by hanging. This was commuted to life in prison. Yes, he was sentenced by a Gambian court for his role in the murder of the former Minister of Finance, Koro Ceesay, who was allegedly killed in Toure's house. We move on to the second conviction, and this was the first outside the country, where a German court sentenced former jungler driver Barrow to life in prison back on 30th November 2023. That's not long ago. That's less than 6 months back or thereabouts. Jungler driver Barrow was sentenced to life for his role in the murder of veteran journalist Dada Haidara, former soldier Dauda Nyasi also, and the attempted murder of lawyer Ousman Silla. He managed to get away with his life. Today, another one. May 15, 2024, the third conviction of a Jammeh-era crime was handed down on former Interior Minister Ousman Sonko by a Swiss court. Now, Ousman Sonko was sentenced to 20 years in prison by a Swiss court. They found him guilty of multiple counts of intentional homicide, multiple counts of torture, and false imprisonment. According to Swiss law, this is the highest sentence that can be handed down to perpetrators of crimes against humanity, 20 years. Now, this 20 years will take into account the 7 years that Sonko has already been held for. He has to go. And then what will happen? Will the Gambia government call for his extradition to see what further? Because if you subtract 7 out of 20, you've got 13 years. 13 years is not too far from now. So Ousman Sonko, who was allegedly provided, according to the TRRC, and other sources, he provided information to the junglers, leading to the death of veteran journalist Dada Haidara and numerous others. However, jungler driver by law was sentenced to life under German law, but Ousman Sonko has been sentenced to only 20 years under Swiss law. So there are differences between Swiss law, German law, and we are getting to grips with this. Next, what next? After these three, what is going to happen next? Next, former jungler assassin Samuel Correa is expected to face trial in the United States in the 3rd quarter of this year. So about September or so, we may see the U.S. court case start for Samuel Correa, a former jungler assassin. Now, when we looked into this, and I hope our National Assembly member who is a claimant in this Ousman Sonko case is listening, there are a number of things which we're going to talk about definitely. What is important is I've looked at some of the issues about compensation in here. The court, in its documentation, I've been reading the ruling, it says 14,413 Swiss.30 Swiss franc was seized from Ousman Sonko and to be allocated to the private claimants. We'll be calling one of them soon. The same ruling also says 1,633.87 Swiss franc has already been paid in full to Ousman Sonko's lawyer, Mark Wollman. That's one of Ousman Sonko's lawyer. Another of Ousman Sonko's lawyer, he will receive 1,097,118.40 Swiss franc, minus the payments already made to his lawyer and the lawyer of Ousman Sonko named lawyer Philip Kurat. Now these payments are being done by the Confederation. We will try to get we will try to get one of the claimants who traveled to Switzerland to file a lawsuit against Ousman Sonko. Honorable Madi Ceesay is the one we are going to talk to. Honorable Madi Ceesay, he flew all the way to Switzerland to actually file this, be part of the whole process. And he's a claimant. Some thousands of dollars of Swiss franc, as I've said, has been seized, and the ruling states that they will be allocated to them. And it's very important for us to find out how he thinks about this. Welcome to the show, sir. Honorable.
Yes, you okay?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine.
With us on the line is Honorable Madi Ceesay. Honorable, if you can just introduce yourself.
Well, I am Honorable Madi Ceesay. I'm officer from the West. Journalist by profession. A victim of Jammeh's regime. Yes.
Thank you.
I think in a nutshell, that's who I am.
Indeed. And in this interview, you were also a claimant, right, to the whole case of the Ousman Sonko, and you've seen the ruling. 20 years has been handed down to him to stay in Swiss jails. What's your reaction?
Just to say that I am very much relieved and happy that after more than 17 years of waiting to see justice, at least finally, I am happy that the main person against all the kind of human rights abuses meted out on my personality is pinned down and given a sentence of 20 years. And I made to understand that this is the maximum in Swiss that can be handed over to such a person. And then that went even more to relieve me that the simple language of this sentence is to tell Ousman that you have done the worst at the face of that. Yes.
Indeed. Thank you for that response. So there's also some highlights in the ruling that the claimants will be awarded some monies. But I don't know if you are aware that the lawyer, Philip Kurat, the defense lawyer, Philip Kurat, the lead lawyer, he will be getting over 1 million Swiss francs as compensation, and the Confederation will be paying that. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I really don't know what the Swiss law is all about as far as that compensation is concerned. But I know in our Gambian context, lawyers should be paid by their claims, and that's all. But then perhaps there is the Swiss law, and really I
1 million.
I would have little to say about that, since that is what prevails in Switzerland.
Have you seen the amount that you would be awarded? I don't know if that's something you would in mind.
I know I haven't got all the details yet, but then I know during the trial, our compensation, but after the rulings, really not yet.
Seen it all.
I did not yet have the privilege to have all the details.
I will share it with you then, because it's very important for you, sir.
That's right.
Yes, I'll share it with you. So whilst I have you on the line, I don't know if you were listening to the program. We were talking about a number of issues which, this country is faced with. For example, just last week, we saw that the president announced that State House that they'll be going on a presidential tour. And in their presidential tour, the itinerary, one of the points that the things that they will be doing is to, launch some NPP regional bureaus, as well as attend the Barrow Foundation launching. What's your reaction to this? Do you think that is okay? Is Parliament going to do anything about it?
That is quite wrong for the president to do that. President's tour of the country once or at least twice in a year is a constitutional mandate for him to do. And when he goes out on official trips like that, what I would have expected from him, anything he does should be that of national. So partisan politics should not be part of that, because the bill that is going to be paid by taxpayers is paid by all of us. Whether you are in NPP or not in NPP, it is a national duty that the president is carrying out, so he is being sponsored by nation's taxpayers. Therefore, partisan activities should really be separated from that kind of tours. The president could have, after that constitutional mandate, can go on a purely partisan tour, which would be footed by the party. Then he can do any partisan activities he wants to do. But all the time, this is the problem that people like us have with presidents with the people's tour, because they cannot really divorce partisan politics from it. And when I say partisan politics, it's like really launching an NPP political bureau that the UDP does not subscribe to, that the DOI does not subscribe to, that the other political parties don't subscribe to. That is purely an NPP affair. That could have been footed, the bill could have been footed by the party itself, but not use taxpayers' money to do your politics. I think this has been with us for quite a long time, from the First Republic to this Second Republic, and we are still in the Second Republic because we haven't got our constitution yet. So, but the two presidents, both Jammeh, Barrow and Stuttered, we are doing the same thing. Somebody must come and stop that.
Is Parliament going to do something about this? What will you, as honorable member, you have the people's mandate. You have a vote in Parliament. You can table a matter of the day. Will you do something about it?
we will definitely do something about it. When I say we, I mean the United Democratic Party will definitely do something about it collectively, because we usually look at national issues and then we take up matters as and when it's important. So this is something that is really very important, and we can do something. And we can. That's not even the only thing that parliamentarians can do about this. Parliamentarians can pose parliamentary questions, and they can demand written answers as for the president to explain why is he using taxpayers' money on partisan issues during the Meet the People's Tour. And this is a question that we can pose, and I can definitely tell you that I personally will pose that question. It's not going to be an oral answer, it's going to be a written answer. I will demand the president to explain why is he using taxpayers' money on partisan issues when he's on national duties, when he's on constitutional duties. This tour is mandated by the constitution for him to do at least twice in a year. Nobody has a problem with that. That is quite okay for him to do it.
Indeed. Yes, but if he's doing his tour, they shouldn't have any partisan, dimension or personal issues. Definitely.
No, because that is in fact he's cheating other people. Because if you use our money to do your partisan politics, you are cheating Gambians.
Yeah.
Use your political party's funds and do your partisan politics. That's fine. Fair enough.
Indeed.
But this is a constitutional mandate for the president to do. So please, I think the president should really think twice about that.
And we've seen just next door, Senegal president, he just recently got rid of, those formalities of this, when the president is traveling, you have officials gathered around, sending off the president, welcoming the president. They've done away with that. How do you see Senegal right now?
I think Barrow should learn from that. And not only stop at that, but also on such constitutional tours of the country, the president should look at which department is necessary to go with, so that the team on the road should be skeleton. He should use a skeleton kind of entourage that will directly respond to the needs of the Gambian people. You don't have to go to an agricultural project and you take along the Minister of Information, or you take along the Minister of Engineer or whatever. Take the persons that are relevant to that. You see, for me, I don't have a problem with President going around the country even 3-4 times, if they need be. But then the delegation should be downsized. But what we see is more of partisan politics than the really national duty.
Yes.
You go with all your companies and all what not. These kind of things, I think our economy is so poor and weak to really carry all these kind of things along with us.
Indeed. Honorable, whilst I have you on the line, I have two more issues that I really think I would like you to comment on. Perhaps. The one is yesterday. They issued a public notice which to say the management of Gambia Ferry Services wishes to inform its customers and the general public that the ferry closed today, that was yesterday, 6 p.m. due to routine maintenance works on the new engines. All customers are assured that operation shall resume, that is today at 6 a.m. for the first ferry from Banjul. What's your view on the stuttered start? It seems like the ferry problem is not going soon, even though they apparently signed some, agreements in front of parliamentarians, apparently, that they are going to have a ferry service soon to address all the issues. What's your take on the latest ferry setback?
It is really disheartening, because if you look at Gambia, it's really divided by the river. We have one half on the other side, the other half on the other. So we need each other, and this crossing is very, very important. It is causing a lot of havoc, and then it is very disheartening that for all the parties, what I have gathered as an information is that there should be a routine, total, maintenance of the ferries every 2 years. That has not happened for quite a long time. And that is some of the reasons why we went almost a month or so without ferry services. And the kind of havoc and loss of income that it has caused this country is enormous. And it seems that this government has no remedy to that, because instead of really taking things very, straightforward with management. They are not. We can see after all those issues of Ferry problems, all what we have seen is a fanfare of signing of commissioning or buying of a new ferry service, which has not even come. So I think government should have taken stricter measures. You see, if we want to develop this country, we must do what is right. If I am put in the management of the ferry service and I don't perform, the president should have all right to remove me and get somebody else who can do the job. But this is what is lacking. Somebody will misuse or would be incompetent in a certain position, but you still leave the person there and praise the person. So the harm will continue to happen. So unless and until, that is my personal opinion and view, that the total management of the Gambia ferry service and the Gambia Ports Authority is not changed, this problem will stay with us forever.
So there needs to be an overhaul.
That's my opinion.
We need to get the right people. Is that what you have said?
I will definitely make a total change in the management.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. And our final point, I had to bring this to you because you were a former president for the Gambia Press Union. Access to information is something that I know will be very dear to your heart. What we are getting, the information, is that Nene McDowell-Gay, who was a former Minister for Information under former President Jammeh, and pandered to the whims and caprices of the former dictatorship, is now allegedly being nominated to chair the Access to Information Commission. And for us, some of us in the media, and my colleagues, we believe this will be a disaster. Now, according to Section 34 of the Access to Information Act, the commissioner has to be a recognized human rights defender, amongst a number of other sub-clauses which require independent persons to occupy such a role. Now, the question, as you are a member in this unique position, this is your cross to carry, sir. What do you think Parliament should do about these, appointments? How will you guys conduct the necessary scrutiny to make sure that these persons comply?
I think if I am not mistaken, the president, the president can nominate names and submit to the Parliament to do their scrutiny, and then subject to Parliament approval, these commissioners will take up their position, just like the Human Rights Commission and other commissions. That is as far as I know, and I think that will happen. So well, let's wait until we reach that point. But actually, we want to go strictly by what the Act has said. It must be headed by somebody who is independent, somebody who is credible, somebody who is not in any way kind of seem to be linked to the kind of gross abuse of media in this country for the past 30 years now. And really, Nene McDowell is one person who has been, like you said, the minister, has been director of GRCS. I don't think really such a person can really be so impartial to hold that very important position. I'm not preempting what my position is going to be, but let's wait and see until the nominees are before the Parliament.
Yes, thank you so much, Honorable. We really, really appreciate you talking to us today. That was the voice of Honorable Madi Ceesay. Any last words that you may have, sir, to conclude?
Well, to conclude, I'll go back to the first questions about Ousman Sonko's case. I want to reiterate that I am really very relieved after 17 years of waiting to have justice. I got justice. I was physically tortured in the hands of uniformed persons under the command of Ousman Sonko as the Inspector General of Police. And I have got this Gambia police force stationed in my newspaper, this independent newspaper, for 2 consecutive years at the expense of taxpayers. And that has sent off the independent newspaper, one of the most critical newspapers at the time, to death. So if today the person who plays a center stage in that is behind by bar, I would say I'm really very relieved. And it is a signal also to say that Sonko is a big fish, but we have the biggest fish, and that is the former President Jammeh. So I'm sure this is a signal. Jammeh would not have he will have numerous sleepless nights now. The fact that people like Sonko are sent to jail, people like Barrow are sent to jail, and then this other man in US standing trial in September. people like Song and Jammeh with the biggest fish will really have a lot of sleepless nights. So I'm really pleased that justice finally has come.
Justice has finally come. Thank you so much, Honorable. That was the voice of Honorable Madi Ceesay. He is a National Assembly member, and he reacted to a number of different questions which we had there. We have a very jam-packed program. 504-7877, 504-7877. This is another very edutaining straight talk show where we hit the nail on the head about important issues facing the country. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, alias Flex Dan, and you are tuned into West Coast Radio 95.3 FM and also streaming live on Gainako Newspaper YouTube page. We've given you so many topics. We started off with a lovely Pan-African flavor, the book launch of Afrika, Not Africa, by Modu Lamin Sow alias Almusaf. Let's get another caller. If you've used the ferry, please tell us. We would like to know. We were getting a caller and unfortunately we've just missed them. Call back. The number to dial is 504-7877, 504-7877. Anybody who has used the ferry today, we would really ferry service press release notice highlighted that 6 a.m. today the ferry would be back after the stuttered start. Also in today's program we just gave you the breaking news. Former Interior Minister Ousman Sonko sentenced to 20 years by Swiss courts. At least he is part of 3 who have now been sentenced for Jammeh era crimes. We just had the voice of Honorable Madi Ceesay reacting to that. We also have a number of things which we talked about today. You had Honorable Madi Ceesay talk about Parliament interrogating the supposed people who will be recommended for the ATI Commission. And they should be persons that comply with the Access to Information Commission Act, ATI Act. So call, tell us what you think. We want to hear from you. 504-7877. 504-7877. That's the number to dial to be able to join this program. And tell us whether you think Ousman Sonko getting 20 years in a Swiss jail is okay. This is part of it. This is justice. We're moving on that part of it. Tell us also, we would like to know, what do you think about the president including opening of his NPP regional bureau as part of presidential tour activities? We would love to know. Dial that number, 504-7877, so we will be able to talk to you about that. Definitely, we need to know whether people have been using the ferries, because, of course, the ferry has been a huge disaster that we have been trying to grapple with. You're tuned into Straight Talk Radio Show, and I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, alias Flex Dan, with you right on West Coast Radio 95.3 FM, also streaming live on Gainako Newspaper YouTube page. Get in touch and support this program so that we will be able to continue giving you the detailed research. On the Pan-African issue, we must people of Sudan who have been going through human rights violation wars. And as journalists, we know that every time in the news cycle, you tune into the news, what is on there? War in Ukraine, Palestine, Israel, conflict, Gaza. These are what is on our news cycle. But what about the African wars that are happening, the human rights violations that are happening in Africa? You know, are they getting? And I feel like, you know, almost the same way as the Sudanese people, because of Gambia was a very small country. So it wasn't really featured heavily in the news when it regards to human rights violations, although we were going through significant human rights violations. Many of them, they have now been exposed. to hear another Sudanese youth complain, tell us about the situation, how their human rights organization was ransacked, how they had to seek exile next door in Uganda. This is the scenario which is facing a number of our Sudanese people, brothers and sisters, and we pray, we hope that African leaders rise up to the challenge and to ensure that really they make sure that this continent is one free of killings, free of war, free of human rights violations. So we will give you another rundown of the, the short podcast, Africa, Not Africa. We will continue with the voice of Modu Lamin H. Almusaf. We will get his perspective on his book launch. And as I said, the reason why we are highlighting this is there were so many students at the book launch, and the way the book launch was organized, they had a competition where students who responded to questions were given a book. This in a day and age where we are certainly struggling with regards to ensuring that students read. Even adults are not reading. So to see so many students gathered in there to show interest on a book which was about African identity is really laudable. Get a copy of that book at Timbuktu. Let's listen to the rest of our short interview. You can listen to the full one on the internet. We'll share that link.
Collection of poetry. This book actually contains 26 poems, and that were inspired by my travel across Africa to 15 different countries. Throughout the book, I have used evocative and thought-provoking poems to invite all of us to explore the nuances and the contradictions of the African experience, challenging stereotypes and misconceptions that often overshadow the rich diversity of our continent. With a blend of humor, wit, and keen observation, I delve into the themes of love, politics, social injustice, and the resilience of the human spirit. Therefore, Africa, Not Africa, is a powerful reminder that Africa is not actually the continent of pests and diseases, but a tapestry of cultures, languages, and tradition that deserve to be celebrated and respected. I capture the essence of this multifaceted reality, offering a fresh perspective on what it means to be an African in the 21st century. Therefore, I think it is important for each and every African citizen to understand that the Africa of Kwame Nkrumah, I mean the Africa of our forefathers, is the Africa that is spelled with the K. And I said the K is Africana, and Africana is the language and the culture of the black people. We the black people, our culture, our languages must be embraced. The white people impose their culture and languages on us as a means of, colonizing us. And in the 21st century, we need to go back to what belongs to us. And as a creative writer, I don't just jump and write stories about love and once upon a time, stories about the camel and goats and cats and dogs and how they became friends and what happened after their friendship. I write what I see. I write the kind of stories I like to read. So therefore, this collection of 26 poems promotes Pan-Africanism in what Professor Piero Lumumba calls Africa, which belongs to Africans. So the book speaks about Africa under dictatorship and further addresses global politics, modern world religion, and the new world order.
That was the voice of Modu Lamin H. Almusaf. You should definitely go check out his book. Very, very interesting. 504-7877, 504-7877. Oh, we're not gonna get any calls today. Well, we have conducted series of interviews. We are very ready. We've done series of interviews which we are bringing to you. And the response of Sira Ndao, who, as I've said, is the country representative for ANECED here in the Gambia. They run Memory House, a very important place that memorializes the victims of human rights violations at Kanifing Estate. You should definitely go and see it. I went together with Sudanese youth, about some 3 of them, and they met the Sira Ndao as well as Madam Adelaide Ceesay. I've already played the interview segment for Madam Adelaide Ceesay, and now I will play Sira Ndao's section that we interviewed her. Let's get her response or her reaction to the meeting between Sudanese human rights advocates and Gambian civil society advocates. Here is the voice of Sira Ndao.
Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So we cannot stand by passively. So we have to stand in solidarity to make sure that what is happening in Sudan, for the civilians especially, it comes to an end. And like you mentioned this earlier, it says it doesn't happen again. It is about time that this world, our humanity, we graduate from conflicts, we graduate from wars, we graduate from dictatorship, and start building a world that is peaceful, a world that is dignified for all human beings to live and work together. We have no benefit really when it comes to war. We have no benefit as humanity when it comes to conflicts. It needs to come to an end. So really, we're very, very honored to be able to stand in solidarity with the people of Sudan and pass the buck along, because people are fully in solidarity with us when we were there. We were not a country, but still a dictatorship was just as bad. And we are very happy to be here. And we hope and will continue the engagement with them. We need to continue our support, showing our support as individuals, as Gambians, as Muslims, as Christians, as human beings, really. Continue showing our support until Sudanese people are able to go back to their countries.
That was the voice of Sira Ndao, the country representative for ANECED, and also the chairperson for the Alliance for Victim-Led Organizations, a very important organization here, which includes all the very different civil society actors that focus on the transitional justice process, victims as the, of course, Victims Center, and ANECED, all these other organizations, they're all part of it. Excuse me. So that was the program today. We had a jam-packed program because we had so much research done. We've written up our script. Of course, we try to be thorough on this program. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor. Until next week, when we will come again your way. This has been Straight Talk. I've been your host, Flex Dan, West Coast Radio 95.3 FM, coming through you as well on YouTube, Gainako Newspaper page. You can check us out there. Today's program, just a quick summary and a quick recap. We talked about the book launch of Afrika, not Africa. After that, we talked about Sudan Youth Network visiting the Gambia. And of course, the breaking news, Ousman Sonko sentenced to 20 years by Swiss courts. 3 perpetrators, of course, sentenced so far, at least 3. We also talk about the ferry services Stuttered. They were setting to start yesterday, but problems. They did not go very well. And we asked the question, should Parliament interrogate government's ATI recommended commissioners? The Gambia Press Freedom Index declines by 12 points. And is President Barrow using state resources for personal and partisan issues? I will be back again next week. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, and this was Straight Talk. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you get back to us next week, Wednesday, same time, 7 o'clock to 8 p.m.